Call this business meeting of the James City County Board of Supervisors to order. Good afternoon. First, we want to recognize that Ms. Null is not here today. She is attending the service for an internment for her father at Arlington National Cemetery. Her father was lost in action, and she fought for a long time to be able to get him interned there. So our thoughts and prayers are with her as she does that today. Mr. Stevens, if you'll please call the roll.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Hippel? Here. Mr. McGlennon?
Here.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Here.
Ms. Larson?
Here.
All present.
We have some presentations today, and we're going to start with our retirement commendation for service for John Carnifax.
All right. Well, before I ask John Carnifax to come to meet me at the podium, I would like to take a few moments to share that our Parks and Recreation Department earned 7 top honors bestowed by the Virginia Parks and Recreation Society at their 71st annual conference last week. And I will tell you, for communities of 50 to 100,000, they received an award in almost every category presented. Our staff that was there said the others were saying James City County again. Again. And I just want to recognize them. We scored Best in Health and Wellness Initiative for our Rhythm Revolution, our Silent Fitness Drumming, Best New DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiative of Sensing for Inclusion, Best New Facilities, Parks, Playgrounds, Blueways, Greenways, or Trails with our Freedom Park Outdoor Classroom, Best New Program, Freedom, The Hands That Built History Tours, Most Creative Marketing Piece, our Love Signs Swag Pack, Most Creative Marketing Strategy, our Grinchy Intentions. To the next page. Snapshot Moment, Doggy Paddling on the James River. I want to commend John in leading this as we get ready to recognize John for having such an award-winning department. But I really want to say thank you to our staff, many of which are in the audience today, as they do the work and monitor these programs or invent these programs or think up these activities that lead to this recognition and awards. I do just want to recognize them and thank them for their work. So thank you for that. Congratulations to John and our Parks and Rec staff. We have all said, and I've heard it from the board, I say it all the time, that we have an amazing group of employees serving this community. And for me, receiving the awards just support what we say and believe. And again, we have an amazing group of employees, but they're also some of the best in the state. And I do really appreciate what they do for us on a daily basis. I would like to come down to the podium. If Ms. Larson will join me, we'll ask Mr. Carnifax to join us. I don't know if he has others at the moment. I'm sure we'll have some photos. I got here with my notes, so I know what I want to say, John.
I'm going to stand up here so I can be a little taller than you.
Anyway, John is one who says he doesn't want a whole lot of public recognition, so I haven't put a lot of time and effort to try to drag this out, but I also didn't want to miss the opportunity to thank him publicly for his 42 years of service, 27 of those with James City County. It's difficult to be mad at John that he's leaving or retiring. I mean, he has done his time, he's put in the effort, and I do think our facilities are much better because of that. Our Parks and Rec staff and facilities are a large part of what makes James City County such a great place. It is sometimes difficult to measure the return on investment because parks are expensive. And I will say this is one of the communities that recovers as much of its costs in any place I've ever been. So that's a real testament to John and the rest of you. But it's still one of those things that maybe we do or don't do. But in this community, it is needed, it is wanted, and our residents really appreciate the effort that you put in there, and they expect a lot from our facilities and our staff. Our Parks and Rec staff interact with our community on a daily basis, probably more than any other department we have in terms of the number of people, the types of things going on, the requests of us, the compliments of us, we get those as well, and things they'd like to see do different. And so when being the leader of a department that is such forward-facing takes a really special person. Somebody that can balance the needs. I've seen it in front of a pickleball group with really strong opinions over here, and they were right, and then really strong opinions over there, and they were right, and John manages those situations day in and day out of how to navigate that and come up with a great solution. John's a strong advocate for the community, our parks, and his staff. I hear from him all the time. He is advocating for you as employees. He is trying to make our parks better. He does it in a nice way, sometimes so nice that I'm saying, John, I need a minute or a week or a month, but he doesn't let it go away. He is one of those that comes back and keeps on and always looking for a way to make it a win-win for those involved. And this community is better for that. I didn't count the number of parks that John has been involved in creating, but it's almost all of them. With the employees' help and others in the community, he has been involved in a lot of what's gone on here. As I said, he doesn't back up or give up or back down, but he is willing to listen to other ideas. He's willing to research topics. He claims he doesn't know it all, but he can find it out. I've seen him do that even after his 40-some years of being employed. He still is able to research and come to a good conclusion. And he's also willing to change his mind. And I think any of us in a leadership role who think we know it all and we're always right, someone that knows they're not and they are willing to take other guidance really, really speaks well of them. And John is certainly that. Just in final words from me, Ms. Larson's going to cover a little more of some of where we've been and how we got here kind of things. But I have had the opportunity to work with some great parks and recreation directors in the communities I've served, and I would put John at the top. I am really sorry to see him go as our parks and recreation director personally. I think he's left the department in really great shape, but I've enjoyed working with John on a day in and day out basis, and so much so, if he'll come back in a month, he'll be back, not in Parks and Rec, so don't worry about that. But I will have him on some projects going in the county, so I'll at least get to harass him, as will some of you from time to time. But I'll miss you in your role as Parks and Rec director. You have left the department, I think, in really, really good shape, and everybody here supporting and smiling really sort of adds to that as well, John. So I just want to say thank you. I want to ask Ms. Larson if she will come forward and present this commendation honoring your service, and then we'll give you a chance to say a word or two.
I will read this, but I want to say that a few months ago, Supervisor Hipple and I had an opportunity to go out on the fireboat, and we were escorting the ship that was going up to do some work, and we both looked at each other at one point and said, "What a beautiful place we live." And I think that what your legacy will be is that you have captured so much of that beauty in our parks. And we are so blessed by that, because today we were out at the Green Springs Trail and it's just beautiful. And in all of our parks, Freedom Park, Chicomee Riverfront Park, Upper County Park, they're all just beautiful. And that will be your legacy. Supervisor McGlennon often talks about what local government is about. And the thing about local government is every day you can drive by something that you've had a chance to impact. And for the rest of your life, that's what you will have, is that you have impacted so much here locally. So, whereas John Carnifax began his 42-year career in 1982 as a recreation supervisor at Brunswick Correctional Center. Did that help you with dealing with the Board of Supervisors? I don't know. Okay, all right. In Lawrenceville, Virginia. Following that, he became Director of Parks and Recreation for Louisa County, Virginia. In 1997, he joined James City County as the Superintendent of Parks and Facilities. And whereas John's outstanding leadership and love for parks quickly moved him through the ranks to Deputy Director and finally to Department Director in 2009, and whereas through his drive and determination for excellence, the department consistently performs at the highest caliber, serving over 6.5 million residents and visitors annually. And whereas leading the department to national accreditation and a National Park and Recreation Association 2012 gold medal, John takes pride in being a trendsetter and ensuring the best experiences at JCC's 17 parks, including a beach, marina, campgrounds, 2 recreational centers, a sports stadium, event hall, 49 miles of natural and hard surfaces trails for hikers, runners, and bikers, and numerous community partnerships, tourism initiatives, programs, and special events. And whereas he is a walking billboard for parks and recreation, demonstrating the endless benefits through his love of cycling, exercise, outdoor adventure, family, and community spirit. And whereas James City County is forever changed through his efforts to not only improve our infrastructure, but to nurture and promote his coworkers. John has set a culture for others to succeed, dare to try, and achieve their best. He models his leadership through continuous and experimental learning and has left a department that is prepared to continue the excellence he has instilled. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Chair of the Board of Supervisors, on behalf of the residents of James City County, do hereby extend our deepest gratitude to John Carnifax for his decades of exceptional service and commitment to our community. We wish him an enjoyable, fulfilling, and well-deserved retirement. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the County of James City, Virginia, to be affixed. I'm getting choked up now. This 24th day of September, 2024. Congratulations.
I wish she hadn't done that. Anyway, first let me say, thank you to the residents of James City County. They've been very supportive of me, our department, for the 20-some years, 27 almost, I think now. But anyway, none of this would be possible without their support and drive and expectation that we do for them on a daily basis. And so first and foremost, thank you to the residents of James City County for allowing me to participate and serve you for these 27 years. Second, for this board and the previous boards, let me say thank you again for allowing me to come up with crazy ideas and try things that some thought might not be possible, whether it was a public-private partnership or metal detecting, which didn't go real well. But I've had a few failures along the way, and that's okay. I've always wanted to challenge myself and others and support others and this board throughout this, my tenure here. So thank you all for what you've done to allow us to expand, to provide the services. So thank you to our executive leadership team and all of the staff in James City County. I'll say thank you to you, because none of it would be possible without what you've done for us as a team. We work together collaboratively, and you've kept me out of trouble on many occasions, whether it was purchasing or HR, even our county attorney, when I want to allow people to fly those powered things out of one of our parks. You told me, no, we can't do that. I'm still going to try to get that done at some point. But anyway, so I value and appreciate all of you all for what you've contributed to the success of our department, and all of these accomplishments are really a team effort. I stand before you to accept it for the team, not necessarily for me. And for my Parks and Rec team, I'm here for you. I love you, and I wish you nothing but the best in the future.
I do want the board to come down. We do want the staff to come up. I have one other thing that I should have done that I forgot to. I thank the staff. What I didn't thank is Ann, John's wife. He has this group that puts up with him during the day, but all that has to come home to one person. And she still smiles and sticks up and shows up with him. And I do want to say thanks to family. That matters a lot too. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing John with us for so long. And like I said, we'll get a picture with the board and then pull up. Alex is here. Maybe somebody's got to be behind the camera, so Alex get in the group. But I really would like the staff to come up and be with John as well. You got us, Jason? Okay, Alex is running down the first one. Oh, Alex wants one.
Parks and Rec staff.
Yep, yep.
Chief Ash? Okay. I'm so glad that Mr. Stevens started where we would recognize people who retire from James City County. But at the same time, it's really tough because you look at years of experience and knowledge and realize what we are going to be missing. And it's tough on a community. So thank you very much. Do you want me to read this first and then you
If
do
you
your
don't
remark?
mind, can I go first? Do you
No,
mind?
I do not mind.
All right.
I should have asked first.
No
Sorry.
worries. No problem at all. Excuse me. It was loud. So good afternoon, everybody. It's my honor this afternoon to recognize firefighter paramedic Jim Laing, or Uncle Jim, as most of us know him as. Has dedicated his entire adult life to fire and emergency medical services. Jim tells me that while still in high school, he took an EMT class. Actually had to wait until after he graduated high school and turned 18 so he could even take the exam. He first served with James City County Fire Department as an auxiliary member from September of 1980 until he was hired by the Newport News Fire Department in December of 1981. And I think after we review some of his career, that was a missed opportunity for us to have Jim on our team much earlier in his career. Jim went on to serve the Newport News Fire Department for 28 years, retiring as a captain. He became a paramedic in 1985, began flying with Nightingale Regional Air Ambulance in 1994, where he still serves as a flight paramedic. Those are responsible for transporting some of Hampton Road's most critical patients. Jim has served as a firefighter paramedic in York County, worked as a technician in the cardiac catheterization lab, and eventually found his way back home to James City County in 2019. During his time with us, Jim has proved that he provided us with much needed experience, mentored many new providers and officers along the way. And Jim has served as one of our advanced care paramedics, an acting company officer, and EMS supervisor. When I started with the fire department, I would hear others talk about Jim Laing, often like a legend in EMS. I'll never forget the first time I met Jim, and I've told him this story before. We were in the cab of a fire truck, and I was a brand new captain helping teach a driver-operator class in the region. And this gentleman climbs up in the cab of the truck, and I have no idea who he is. And as we're driving down the road, he tells me his name. And I think at that moment, I went from being scared to immediately thinking I was in the wrong place. But I think that despite my fears, Jim treated me with respect that day, even after recognizing I was probably in over my head. So Jim showed me that no matter how long you've been on the job, you can always learn something. And I think that's just a small example of the calm demeanor, respect, and leadership that Jim has shown throughout his career. When I was talking with Jim to get some of the important dates of his career, he made sure to mention that one of his most important dates was being married to his wife, Amy, for 40 years this November. His wife was unable to join us today, but we appreciate her sharing with Jim with us for all these years throughout his career. I know the 24-hour shifts are tough, sometimes several in a row, and we appreciate the sacrifices your family has made. So Jim, enjoy your retirement. Thank you. We also want to recognize
Very nice. Whereas James Laing has served citizens and visitors throughout Hampton Roads for the past 44 years through his service in fire and emergency medical services. He began his career in September 1980 as an auxiliary member of the James City County Fire Department before serving an extensive career with the Newport News Fire Department. During this time, he became a flight paramedic with Nightingale Regional Air Ambulance and has provided care to some of the most critical patients throughout Hampton Roads. He returned to James City County in 2019 to continue his service as a firefighter paramedic. And whereas throughout his 44 years of service, James Laing has exemplified the highest standards of professionalism, integrity, and commitment to excellence in public service. During his extensive career, he has served as a firefighter, advanced care paramedic, flight paramedic, EMS supervisor, and company officer. And whereas James Laing's experience, leadership, and mentoring have contributed immensely to the growth of the James City County Fire Department. And whereas James Laing has mentored and trained countless colleagues, serving as an inspiration and role model for others in public service. He was instrumental in precipitating new providers as he offered his guidance and experience to further their development. Whereas James Lang's retirement on August 1st, 2024 is a profound loss for James City County as we bid farewell to one of our most experienced and esteemed public servants. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Chair of the Board of Supervisors, on behalf of the residents of James City County, do hereby extend our deepest gratitude to James B. Laing for his decades of exceptional service and commitment to our community. We wish him an enjoyable, fulfilling, and well-deserved retirement. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the County of James City, Virginia, to be affixed this 24th day of September, 2024. Congratulations. Thank you so much for your service. There you go. We'll be able to replace you. I don't know. Please.
Well, I wasn't prepared to say anything, obviously, and I can't do any better than the gentleman before me did so eloquently, said so many things. I guess one of the things I reflect back on is coming out of high school and being a young individual, 19 years old. And it was actually Chief Kraft's dad in Newport News that took a chance on me and hired me. And I think he's proud of me, looking down on us now. And I think we did really good things. And I can't thank the city well enough, or enough, I should say, for taking a chance on me and grooming me and bringing me along in life, because I really had no life experiences when I first started, but I certainly grew up pretty fast running the streets of Newport News and taking care of people there. So it's truly a humbling experience, and I appreciate all the kind words, and thank you for taking a chance on me and bringing me here. I'm sorry. It's tough to get out of the business, if you will, and I should be on the golf course right now, but and that's one of the reasons my wife can't be here. She actually plays in a tournament in the league, and she's out on the course right now, and he made me come here and do this, but actually, he didn't really make me. I had just planned to show up. He invited me, and I couldn't miss this because it's truly an honor, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much, everybody.
So hard. And now we have a strategic plan presentation by WATA. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Nice to see you again.
Good to see you again. It's a real pleasure to be here, ladies and gentlemen. Before we get started, I hope this doesn't count against my time. This is the way we do it, right? With the challenge coin.
Oh, thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Matt.
All right, so this is military tradition, the challenge coin. You'll see it's got the WATA bus on the front there. We have our values as well of the of safety, friendly service, reliability, teamwork, and communication. And on the flip side, the WATA chevron with the communities we serve. So I'd like to present it to you on the for the your past and ongoing and future support to the Williamsburg Area Transit Authority. Now, I will. It is a challenge coin, so If I see you somewhere and I present my coin, if you don't have it, you owe me a beverage of my choice.
Okay.
If you do, I owe you a beverage of your choice. So, and feel free to challenge one another. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to
time.
It is a pleasure to be back here to present to you again, this time focusing on our recently approved and published transit strategic plan. So just briefly, I want to provide you a service update, okay, where WATA is now still.
My apologies, I didn't introduce you, so you might want to say your name and your
Ma'am.
position. I'm sorry.
Absolutely fine. I should have done that anyway. I'm Matthew Scalia, Executive Director of the Williamsburg Area Transit Authority. So with the agenda, I'll provide you a service update where we are now. Then we'll go into the strategic plan requirements, the process we used, so you can understand there was a process to make sure we got good public input. What those results were, some specifics from the feedback, and then make sure I leave time for you for questions and discussion. First, a service update. I have the updated FY24 numbers there for you. Continue to improve on our ridership numbers for fixed route and paratransit. I will say paratransit numbers seem to be leveling off at about that. I think it was a total of like maybe two difference from the previous FY, but for the fixed route, numbers continue to climb. We were up to about 84% strength, I believe, the high point for us for our operators just a few months ago. We've taken a dip down. That does have an impact on services we're able to provide. So finding the operators continues to be a challenge for us. On the right-hand side, you see 2019 and 23 comparison, so pre-pandemic to pandemic. Now, the reason I use FY23 numbers there, those are NTD submitted and approved numbers. You see a dramatic increase in our fixed route service. I would say that's not so much necessarily increase in ridership as it is just efficiencies, all right? We weren't running the same hours as we had before, so the hours we were operating had more riders. And our service hours currently 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. We did recently extend our Sunday hours to 6 p.m. just back in May, as well as a frequency on routes 1 and 2 during the peak hours. Okay, so evolving WATA, I just got to leave that up there so everybody sees the brand. And so what is evolving WATA? It's a transit strategic plan required by the state, the Department of Rail and Public Transportation, looking 10 years to the future. All right, we're to update it, a brand new plan every 10 years with updates every 5 years. We do touch points every year just to see how our progress is. It is required for all 16 urban transit agencies across the state. For this process, we contracted with Jarrett Walker and Associates. So what did it involve? It involved analyzing the existing system and ridership patterns. We did look at some transit alternatives, in particular microtransit as an option. Again, it looks 10 years out, and it did have stakeholder engagement and public outreach. Briefly on the process there, on the right-hand side, the rough date. So Jarrett Walker first approached us and discussion with the board. The first thing we had to do was get public engagement, right? So they discussed with us how that was going to work, and I'll get more into that in a few other slides. But that occurred December of 22 to January of 23. Once we had that public engagement, came back to our board of directors to seek guidance, and from the results, they told us, with their guidance, we want you to look more at ridership over coverage. That seemed to be the preference from the surveys and outreach we did. So that incurred February of 23, whereby the board gave us their priorities. And then from the February of 23 to April, or from the February 23 up until February of 24, they were designing the network. Came back, gave us some updates to the board, nudged them left or right, and then back to the board with the draft planned February to April, again going back out for public comment outreach with stakeholders. Finally back to the board for approval June of 24. Now, the assessing the conditions and refining the plan, of course, is ongoing. All right, if I may, a refresher for some, but quickly, Transit 101. The two things we talk about really in terms of transit are ridership versus coverage. Okay, so ridership, think the diagram you see there, more buses on fewer routes, update or more frequency of buses, allow people to more options, right? 15-minute is a lot more convenient than an hour wait for buses. Whereas coverage, same number of buses, same area, but now you've got them running over more routes. But as a result, of course, you can't run the same frequency. I will note, coverage isn't just necessarily geographic area, it could be hours as well. Maybe you're running later hours, you're probably not getting as great ridership. Okay, WATA's existing network. Currently, we are at 60% ridership to coverage. Now, that balances really resources, right? Where are our resources going? Our buses, our operators, budget. So it's about a 60-40 split right now. And the question we asked when it first went out, should we change that balance? For our public methods, engagement methods, online survey, paper survey, of course, online options. We did have public meetings, social media posts to try to draw people in, and then emails out as well, especially to our key stakeholders. And the results. So the first public engagement, again, just the first question, should we change that balance of ridership to frequency? You can see that 75% of the respondents preferred ridership over coverage. A fair amount of respondents, 163, not a huge number, I recognize, but in comparison to what our consultants say they see, it was a respectable number. And I think also important to note, results were consistent across demographics of all our riders and interested parties. So again, that first survey, they wanted more ridership over coverage. Once the draft plan came out, sent it back to the public for review and comment. And this time the question was, do we have the network right? And we showed them how it was to change over different phases, where we would be increasing frequency, what routes might change, and really a pretty resounding majority said, yes, you have it right. So really the three questions were, does it benefit you? Does it benefit people you know? And does it benefit people in the region? And when you combine all those together, over 70% of respondents said it was better in all three categories. Also, I think important to note the diversity among the respondents in age, income, and gender. So what does this look like? Again, from the original public comment, the board said, let's move to 70-30 split. So a slight shift towards ridership for us. Okay, our existing network. Most routes are 1 hour. Okay, not very convenient, but it does provide some good coverage. Again, we did return to 30-minute frequency on routes 1 and 2, Route 1, Lee Hall, Route 2, Richmond Road during the peak hours, 6:30 to 9:30 and 3:30 to 6:30 on weekdays. Lackey, the Lackey route, Route 11, is just a 90-minute. And then we have the only 15-minute route currently is Route 15, Colonial. And then we do have all-day frequency Route 12 at 30 minutes. In the three-phase process for our strategic plan, and they're dispersed by 2 years, phase 1 for FY26, you see we increased all-day frequency for routes 1 and 2. Again, Lee Hall and Richmond Road. Not just during peak hours, but all day. There will be some rerouting when we complete our Northern Transfer Center. A reminder to you all, the transfers in our north are at a Walmart parking lot. We really have nothing provided to our passengers or even our operators. This project will begin construction, I'm hopeful, in the spring. And so when it's complete, we will reroute them up there, but really just for the purpose of making it to a new location. The routes themselves are generally going to remain the same. And then again, 30-minute frequency for 1 and 2 all day. Phase 2 will increase frequency on Route 7, which is Moortown Road. So that'll be 30-minute frequency, and then increased frequency on Route 3, Merrimack Trail. And there will be a rerouting there to connect Route 3, a new branch connecting to Route 11. That will make Route 11 much more convenient for passengers. And increasing that 90-minute Route 11 Lackey to 60 minutes. You see, it will also, Route 11 will also extend a little bit further down to Yorktown. And then phase 3 for 2030 is increased frequency on Route 12 from 30 minutes to 15 minutes. So, summary, 75% of respondents preferred the ridership over coverage. That was the initial guidance then to our consultant on drafting a plan. And then with that draft plan going back out for public comment, over 70% felt it was better for them as individuals, their friends, their people they know, and they felt the region as a whole. And then there again are the summary of the 3 phases. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes my presentation. Now I want to open it up for any questions you may have.
Questions?
Mrs. Scalia, thanks very much for your presentation. Obviously, transit's an important consideration as the community continues to grow. We want to figure out some ways to reduce traffic congestion on the roads and encourage people to take a more efficient means of transportation. I do wonder about whether you feel like we've captured the attitudes, not just of the people who attended these events or filled out the questionnaires. I guess the question is, are we thinking about ways in which we can attract people who don't see themselves as transit riders now to think about this as an option?
I do think often about that, and I see that as one of my primary roles, is getting out there, engaging the public, talking to as many organizations as I can. I speak to a lot of nonprofits, but those are, who are helping a lot of those who need public transit. But I want to get with other organizations too, to try to talk the benefits and receive feedback on how we might make it more. It needs to be accessible. It needs to be convenient. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what this plan will do largely. We get a lot of great feedback from the college students. They're some of our biggest riders, but even not just here in our footprint, but in Hampton Roads at large, receiving a lot of the same feedback. The younger generation are looking for more options than owning a car. So, as you develop more bike paths in the region, electric bikes are popular. Public transit is a huge piece of that as well. So, continuing to engage the public in all forms and manners is important for me to do, to receive such feedback.
And I just wonder, is there a tool available to citizens or visitors in the community who want to figure out how to get from one location to another, how long it's going to take them to get there, what the best routes to take would be? I've heard some concerns, for instance, about residents of Grove who now find it harder to get to Old Town Medical Center or the Social Services Department on Old Town Road.
So I'd hope the 30-minute frequency on Route 1 is I hope they're aware of that and finding it easier in that regard. So I think we can do better. There's our website needs updating. That is a target of mine to improve. But more and more, it's what people hold in their hand. So use of the transit app is one of the things that we publish and try to publicize as much as possible, so they can see real-time buses. They can schedule easily, and it shows them other options aside from just public transit. It'll tell them exactly which buses to pick, what the times are, and allows us to give immediate feedback on when there's a delay in the route. So publicizing the transit app is a goal of ours as well.
Okay. And I know that, as you know, I chair a committee for DRPT on sort of looking at the formula for allocating state assistance. I just wanted to compliment WATA for being very successful in the capital side, especially in terms of gaining support from the state for construction.
Thank you, sir. The state was generous to us this year.
Other questions? I just wanted to do a follow-up about, you said it's still a challenge for drivers, to get drivers, operators. What are some ways that you're trying to do that?
So our board just last week approved, in line, we were part of the James City County compensation studies. That was hugely helpful. And we set the same target of 65th percentile pay for our staff. And the board approved that just last week, so they will see that in October. They also received a similar 5% bump the beginning of this fiscal year. So that's helpful, but as soon as we do that, we see other competition, including large neighbor on the peninsula who increased pay significantly for their operators. So that's part of it. But it is more than just about pay. We have a lot of operators who come to us because though they might be receiving more pay elsewhere, they like the atmosphere, they like the community here. So I think that's to our benefit. But I feel we can do a better job getting our word out a bit more. So we'll be engaging places where drivers are training for their CDL, so they can see the other opportunities available to them. And I think many in this room can appreciate the challenge of communicating. It's not just about the take-home pay, it's about the whole benefits package. And when they can see that as the full picture, I think it's helpful to convince them it's a good job to have.
Thank you.
Can I just follow up on one other item that I was curious about? In your strategic plan, do you have any targets in terms of what you would like to see in ridership over the next 5 years, for instance?
A good question. Actually, no, there are no specific goals for ridership there, but we're keeping the consultant on retainer. We will do updates, and that's something I can bring back to them. What might we expect? But I think that's also in consultation with the municipalities and other organizations to see how we're picturing the community grow itself.
We have seen GRTC up in Richmond experience enormous amounts of growth, partly because they have these bus rapid transit lanes, but also because they have free fare. And the state does have a program for free fare. I know you've looked into that. Any sense of whether that makes sense for our community?
So I have not. I've looked into it, and I've been learning a lot from others. I would like. To be confident, I would need to take a more formal look at it and study into it. I do know a challenge is what it would mean with some of the other contracts we have with the college and with the Cologne Williamsburg Foundation. The challenge with the state, as you know, is they provide that assistance only for so long, and then it's upon the municipalities and the agency to fill that fare gap. So I'm less concerned about the hard fares we would be missing as other revenue losses.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate the update. With that brings us to today's consent calendar. Does anyone wish to pull any items? And then I can list the items. No. All right. Don't wish to pull, but I would ask after we're over, if Chief Ash would mind introducing us to our new Assistant Fire Marshal. So
I'll move the adoption of the consent calendar.
okay. The items consist of acceptance of funds, 686, Virginia fortified, forfeited, whatever, asset sharing program. appointment of Assistant Fire Marshal and authorization of fire prevention powers. Contract award, $118,396, Clark Talley Residential Neighborhood, Phase 2, Plan Development. Contract award, leaf collection services. Contract award, $405,012, My Place Playground Replacement. 6, dedication of streets in parcels A and B of Track 3 in the Stonehouse subdivision. 7, grant award, $183,260, Commonwealth's Attorney Victim Witness Assistant Program. Our Commonwealth's Attorney, Nate Green, is in the audience today. Grant award, $17,900, Department of Motor Vehicles Alcohol Enforcement. Grant award, $39,748, Department of Motor Vehicles Police Traffic Services. Chief Jameson is also here today. Grant award, $76,464, Four for Life Return to Localities Fund. Grant award, $30,000, Radiological Emergency Preparedness. Grant award, $206,865, School Security Officer, Williamsburg, James City County Schools. Grant award, $401,046, Virginia Department of Fire Programs Fund. Grant award, $47,957, Virginia Opioid Abatement Authority, Colonial Behavior Health. Grant award, $168,691, Virginia Opioid Abatement Authority. 16, minutes adoption. 17, phone system replacement. 18, revised JCC Williamsburg Convenience Center Agreement. 19, updates to personnel policy and procedure manuals, Chapter 2, employment, 5, employee benefits, and 11, safety policy. 20, grant award, $718,311, 2023 scattered site housing rehabilitation community development block grant. 21, 2023 scattered site housing rehabilitation community development block grant, adoption of required housing rehabilitation program design and residential anti-displacement and relocation assistant plan. I think Vaughn is here as well. 2023 scattered site housing rehabilitation community development block grant, adoption of required Section 504 grievance procedures for disability non-discrimination. 2023 scattered site housing rehabilitation community development block grant, adoption of required fair housing certification. 2023 scattered site housing rehabilitation community development block grant, adoption of required local employment plan. Mr. Stevens.
Mr. McGlennon?
Aye.
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower? Aye. Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
And while Chief Ash comes down, I just have to comment on the numerous number of grants and really worthwhile grants at that we have gotten. I was reading about that we're getting some new radar guns and some for alcohol enforcement. I just want to thank everybody for doing what they can to get these grants. Good afternoon.
Afternoon again. It's my pleasure to introduce Robert Minturn. Bob, as we all know him, Bob has been with James City County since 2006. Has been in a variety of roles with us. And last year, about this time, came over to the Fire Marshal's office and has spent most of the last year receiving the certification training required to enforce the fire prevention code, investigate fires, site plans review, a number of other items that our Fire Marshal's office does. And so we're glad to have Bob on our team. He also sort of has a special talent. He's our go-to computer person and helps us out with a lot of our data analytics. And so his role within the Fire Marshal's office, while he's also trained to do the same activities others do, he's also focused on our community risk reduction efforts and really looking at our data at targeting specific hazards in our community. So Bob's going to be a big part of our accreditation process over the next couple of years. So.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for
Thank you.
coming to the meeting. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. With that brings us to board discussions. First, Government Center update. Assistant County Administrator Brad Reinheimer. We know how to clear a room. I think what you're going to say is very interesting.
They all left.
Thank you, Chair Larson and board members, Mr. Kinsman, Mr. Purse. This is my monthly update on the progress that we made with the Consolidated Government Center. As you all know, back in February, we signed an interim agreement with the Henderson Gilbane Group to get us up to 30% design on a new Consolidated Government Center. We worked through the programming phase, and then as we entered into the design phase, we needed some questions answered from you all where we had the special meeting back in August, where you all provided input on kind of what you wanted to see exterior-wise. We talked some about the podium parking and got some of the questions that we needed answered to move forward. During that time also, we've continued to get input from employees. We've got some preliminary floor plans that department heads have reviewed. The working group has continued to work very hard and very collaboratively with the Henderson Gilbane Group and Guernsey Tingle and Clark Nexon and Timmons. It truly has been a back and forth affair. We meet regularly and there's always a lot of discussion and a lot of changes being made. And it's all coming from comments we get back, either from you as a board or from our citizens or from our employees. So we value that input. We're very excited today because you are going to see some renderings of the proposed government center, proposed site plan. These aren't final. I want to stress that right now. There's still many opportunities to provide input. We're having an employee input session tomorrow from 8 to 12 right here in this room, where employees can come in and see the same things that you're going to see today. We're holding a stakeholders group meeting on Wednesday or Thursday, excuse me, and then we're doing a public input meeting October 1st at Legacy Hall from 4 to 7 p.m. where the public can come in and provide comments on what you're going to see today. So again, be mindful what you're seeing today isn't necessarily the final version of anything. We just want to know that we're going in the right direction. We've listened to employees, we've listened to you all, we've listened to the citizens, and we think we've come up with a product that is exciting. We're excited about it. We're pleased with how we're progressing, and I think you will hopefully feel that way too. So I'm going to call up Brad Sipes, who's the lead architect with Guernsey Tingle, and he's going to go over some of the slides for you all. We'll have some questions at the end.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I am Brad Sipes with Guernsey Tingle Architects. Brad number 2, that was Brad number 1. So I am excited to be here today. We have had great leadership with Scott and Brad, and we've done a lot of work since last time I was in front of you. A lot of that work has been on Timmons, and Timmons is represented today, working on the site. So last time we were here, we looked at a general floor plan, got that we were going in the correct direction, and we looked at some images, and we have some of those. But I want to show you the site plan first. So how do I just do? So what you see in front of you now is the current state of the site plan, and we've played a lot on where this building needed to sit on this site, and this position we feel really maximizes the site and what's already out there. Just so you know, the site, even though it looks pretty flat when you drive by there every day, it actually has a lot of slope that goes from the intersection of Long Hill and Ashbury all the way down to basically where we're showing that wet pond. So we've placed the building closer down to Depew for a couple reasons. One, as we were directed last time, we do have the parking that is underneath the main part of the building. So this placement allows us to take advantage of that grade slope, and it also allows us to have the building address Depew. We felt like Depew was really kind of the main drive, and this building really needed to have a very formal front along Depew. And the other thing that we liked is, given the configuration of the building, you can imagine as you're coming up Depew from either direction and you turn onto Ashbury, the little knuckle in between is really the center entry point for the entire main parking lot. So the first parking lot you get to, we really see that as the general parking, and we really tried to make the building say very clearly, here's the entry point into this building, which is happening at that middle knuckle point. And then we have really two wings. We have the wing that faces Depew, and then we have the little knuckle that connects it, and then the back half. Then, as you can see, we've even allowed for some future expansion for later date and time, and we've planned all that out, and that future expansion really breaks up the parking into two areas. The front being the primary, again, public parking, and the back area being more for staff. However, we are not separating those, so anybody can park at either one of those locations, and both of them have a very clear entry point into the building, which takes you into that center knuckle, and then the general public can get around from there, and staff can enter into the secured circulation from that location as well. And the other thing that we liked about this site is that it really starts to make a connection between the James City County Rec Center and this building, with the notion that we really wanted just to read as one compound and not two separate pieces of property. That make sense? So, so this is a floor plan of the first floor. The parking area is underneath the larger part on the bottom of the screen. The EOC, which is on the top of the page, there is no parking under that area. And again, that's to maximize the site and the grading. But you can see we've really broken this into two parts with the EOC on the north, and that EOC is also the boardroom. We feel like those all go together. And then all of the departments are actually on that bottom kind of chevron shape. And the main entry, as is labeled here, that lobby will have access directly to all of those locations. So when the general public comes in that main public entry, or even what's called the north entrance, they will have access to all of those areas, and they'll have access to the elevators. That makes sense? Did I get that straight? On the second floor, what we have is that we start to separate the general public circulation and the staff circulation. So anything that you see in yellow is the secured staff circulation. So the general public will come up the part in the very center that's labeled as public waiting. And there's a grand set of stairs that come up there, and there's also an elevator bank. And once you get there, you can enter into the community development, which is in purple, or you can go down to the other departments, which are on the right-hand side. But that area is all the public, and the idea is that the staff can exit from all those departments and follow the yellow corridors that are secure and get to any other departments. But it allows us to get public access and secure staff access in the same area, but have them separated. If I go up to the top floor, well, if I can get there. On this one, the EOC, and you can see that central lobby, which is only 2 stories, falls off the page. And this is just the top 3rd floor. And on this one, you can see the same thing happening. We have the public waiting or the public circulation around that grand stair. And again, we have access into and down through the departments. And then we have that secured staff circulation all the way across. And the idea is that you could be in any of the departments, and you could get to any of the other departments through that secure corridor, and you could even go down to the 2nd floor and get access to the boardroom itself, all through a secure corridor, and then be able to obviously go backwards to any of that as needed. That makes sense? All right, so let me show you where we are on the elevation. So this was our first shot of what this could be, and this is looking from Depew. And I think Brad called this, didn't we call this the prison option? So it wasn't very favorable, but it was to kind of get the ideas onto a page. And you can see what this is really showing is that we have the parking, which is the part that sticks out, which is the lower level. And then we have that courtyard or terrace above that. And then we have the 3-story building sitting behind it. Right, and obviously that is narrower than the parking. That's what's creating that terrace. And that allows us to get right around 160 covered parking spaces underneath. And then from those covered parking spaces, you would have direct access up into the departments. So if you come in there and you park, you can go through the elevators and get up to any of the departments through secure corridors and secure elevators. That makes sense?
The underground parking there, does it go back underneath the building as well?
Yes.
So it's pretty much the whole width of the building?
Correct.
Okay. So
Yep, for that
that's
front chevron, not for the back part, but just the front
yeah,
chevron.
just the front chevron.
Yep. So in this one, we started to soften that a little bit and said, all right, so how can we break up? Because this is a massive building. So each one of those wings is like right around 200 feet long, and there's 2 of them. That's just the front shape, so it's a big building. So we really started to look at how we can break this up into much smaller pieces, and how can we combine what we would call more historic materials and more modern materials. Historic materials being the limestone, brick, some concrete, and then the more modern materials being the glass, aluminum, curtain wall system. all materials that have very long life expectancies, which was the other criteria we put on it. So you can see how we started to play with breaking up both the building itself and then even on this elevation, which again, this is what you see from Depew, that front elevation of the parking. And one thing I'd like to point out here is that our goal is that when you pull into that area on the lower level, we see those gray areas. Those are metal screens because we want a little bit of light and a little bit of air circulation to happen underneath that space. But we want that to be completely secure so that if someone's parking in there, they're not exposed to anything from the outside, but we still needed to keep some of that connection. So we liked the direction that this was heading. And as you see to the next one, we went a little further. Oops. Is that we start to also then look at maybe putting some glass down there with the same idea. Now we let a little bit more light in. We have some of those areas that are still the mesh, the metal mesh. And I do want to point out that there's still a circulation system that would be required in that parking garage, right? So we're not relying on that front air to actually circulate inside there, but that just adds to it. Does that make sense? But you can see how on this particular plan, we've taken it to the next level, and this starts to get a little bit more of the historic elements into it. So this is showing the brick again, showing more of the limestone. And then if you look around the top, we start to add what I'd consider a more historic cornice. So it looks like a little bit more of a historic building that's still combined with the modern elements to be something that's in between modern and historic, and really a mixing of those two elements together. And then this is what the entry could potentially look like. So the idea is that all of that parking was kind of focusing you on this center point. And it's a little hard to tell in this rendering, but that knuckle is relatively narrow overall. And the glass that you see on the front, there would be an equal amount of glass on the backside. And then the backside really is a courtyard that we see being used by staff. And the idea is that this is a very, very well lit, very open type of space that people enter, and becomes very clear when you enter that that's where I go. You enter to that, and then again, you can go either direction, either into the Board of Supervisors building and the EOC, or over to where all the departments are. That make sense? And I think this is an overall image. So if we fly in a drone and look down on this, and this would be over the top of Ashbury, looking back towards the building, you can see, and I think I might have skipped one. Yep, sorry. This shows where the current plan is with the entry, with the wing, the chevron that faces Depew, and then you can see the EOC over on the side. And if I skip the next one, what we wanted to look at is what would that same shot look like if we were to add that expansion. So we're not really sure what that is yet, but the idea is that it really would mimic the existing wing to, again, create a funneling effect and make that entry the very clear entry point to the building. And then I think the last, and this is the entry, again, showing what that same entry could look like with the future addition placed onto it. And I think the last thing we have, which will probably be a little clearer, is that this is a little flyover that we did just to give you a better understanding. So this is, again, the front of the building along Depew. You can see the wet pond that will be in front of it. You can see that terrace and the parking underneath. And we clip through a couple trees as we fly along. But there's really a lot of mixture of the historic brick facade and that more modern glass facade combining together. And then there's the staff entry. And then this is the main public parking lot. And again, you can see the entry point, you can see the EOC, and you can see the main department wings. And as Brad pointed out, we're missing a flag. We only have 2 flags in it. We might be missing the state of Virginia's flag. Yeah. But we got the United States and James City County. So. And this is the backside, so we just flew over the top of the EOC. And then this really is this little courtyard that we see as a staff courtyard, where space to go to hang out on the exterior, a little bit more private, a little more pulled away, but still a great setting. And yes, the trees might be a little mature for what we will get on opening day in that courtyard, but that's our goal.
I
Is
thought
what
you
it
were
could
gonna,
look like.
those ones you're gonna leave that are currently there.
We
right?
would love to, yes. And I would like to just, if I can, just if I go quickly back to the overall site plan, the one thing that I would like to point out is that on this plan, if you look at the intersection of Depew and Long Hill Road, our goal really is to leave as many trees as we can, because that is really the heavily wooded area. And so those trees we would like to leave. We know that by putting the parking lot in and putting the pond in, that the gradings are going to require that a lot of those other trees that are there would go away. But our intent is to try to leave as many as we potentially can along that corner. And that really helps to buffer that end of the building, because if you look at that end of the building, that's where the loading dock is. That's where that back entry is, which really is the access for the loading dock. So it's really the part that we need to buffer. And then when you come along to Pew, you get to see that front elevation. And then you see going into Ashbury all the other elevations that are welcoming.
Great. Wanna?
Thank you. And FYI for you all, everything that you saw here today, with the exception of the flyover, because I can't put that on a foam board, the pictures are all in the board work session room after the meeting. If you want to look at them a little more closely, please do. And I guess what I'm looking for today is, overall, you're pleased, you're going in the right direction. Is this something that looks good to you? That's kind of what I'm asking for today.
Well, I'll start.
Imagine that.
Imagine. Of course, the third with, you know, the last of the three designs is the better of the
Looks a lot like the LEC, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. And definitely we need to do the wing. The cost we spend today on this is going to be nothing compared to the cost we're going to spend on this in 5, 10, 15 years. So, you know, if we're going to, like I've said in the past, if you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly. And if we're going to build a building, build it right the first time. And the only thing I worry a little bit about is the flat roofs. You know, I hate a flat roof. It's always a problem. It always leaks. Not because people don't put it on right. It's just a flat roof. And, you know, it's basically sitting there. It's a glorified pond on top of the building. So if we could even change that a little bit and hide it, and it still could be probably hidden, but change that, and instead of having a flat roof, raise it up just a little bit. You can put a metal roof on there. And I think it would be better and serve us better in the long run, instead of a flat roof, 10, 15 years replacing, patching, fixing. You know, metal roof, you're looking at 40 or 50 years. So the money we spend is well used in the long run, and better as for the citizens. I like the way it's nestled on the site. I like the parking underneath. I like the ability to have an area where our staff can go and sit and relax, and, you know, even if it's for 15 minutes in a day, sometimes that's all you need, just to eat lunch, go out and sit and enjoy the outside. And I think it's a beautiful building. I think it's going to serve us well. And, you know, I definitely am for the addition and build it all at one time, because if we build part of it and do like we always do, and nothing wrong with that, try to save every penny and try to save this, and not look forward, when you go disrupt this site, the main county complex, in 5, 10, or 15 years to build that addition, it's going to be hell on wheels for the citizens and everything else, just trying to get in there, trying to get the stuff. We don't have parking. Where's our overflow parking going to be? What are we going to do about BMPs now? Can we get it back to where we had it? because we're not doing it all at one time. So it just compounds a lot of items and a lot of things. So if we're gonna build a building, we need to build the entire building, not part of it, and next 5 years we'll build another part. Let's build it right. We're gonna have to spend money on it. We know that. We know we're gonna have to spend money on these dilapidated buildings we're in now. So, do we spend it on the future? And like we're going now, and I think it's a great design, and I'm very curious to hear the citizens' input and what they like and what they see, but I think it's gonna be a treasure for James City County in the future. Thank you.
So I was pretty much in line with Mr. Hippel until he said he liked the building. I don't like the design, and I'm sorry to be so blunt about it, but it didn't strike me as having any kind of unique reflection of our community. And I know that it's a real challenge with a building as massive as this looks to be. Too harsh and the kind of straight edge everywhere just didn't seem to me to be the kind of statement that a community would want to make, as opposed to sort of a corporate office park. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just my sense of the way things are. But what stood out to me in some of the places that we toured was that they really did give you an impression of the community and a better sense of distinctiveness.
I sometimes am a little frightened when I find myself in agreement with Mr. Hippel.
You'll get there. First of all, I'd say a couple of just things that, the flat roof, I agree. Having dealt with other buildings and stuff like that, that's even if it's just a slight pitch, even if, that kind of thing, it's something that I think will pay dividends for us in the long term. And I would think it would be fairly a minor thing in the design process at this point. I would tend to agree that if it's going to be probably in the long term more cost effective to build the additional wing, but I think what we have yet to wrestle with is what the use of that wing would be, and there are a couple of obvious things that we've talked about, one of which is school administration, and I don't think that situation is going to be resolved in time to make a decision on whether we want to put it there. And then again, we would be making a decision about putting something somewhere that maybe the school board didn't particularly want. And so I think that's, I know there are other considerations under review that we would probably want to look at, but I don't mind adding the wing on, but I think we have to have a very clear understanding from the board of what that intended use would be before we went ahead and committed that. As to Mr. McLennan's point, I somewhat agree, but I learned a lesson when I built my house, and my wife was very, very into all these colonial type houses, and you have to have dormers, and you have to have the roof lines, and you have to have this and that and the other, and I find from a maintenance standpoint, putting a new roof on or something, that every time you have one of those turns, it's more money. So it's a trade-off between functionality and aesthetics, and in essence, this is a corporate headquarters type building, so that there will be, of necessity, some degree of sameness about it, that you have other buildings, but I'm not quite as struck as I think you were, John, about how
harsh it maybe looked, but I'm open to discussion about how we could maybe try to soften that a little bit. The one thing I will come in to you guys on is that I think saving as many of those existing trees as you can in the clumps where you're showing around the borders there, first of all, does a nice screening job. And I think it will help with screening the parking lots and stuff, so that when you come in, it's not just a big paved area with a building sitting in the middle of it.
Sir.
So appreciate that. Oh, and the other thing that I want to make sure that you guys are thinking about is that ultimately, from the intersection of Long Hill and Depew up here, all the way down to Long Hill and Ironbound, which is currently 2-lane, may well need to be 4-lane, given the development trends we're going to be facing in the future. And that needs to be well considered for potential right-of-way when we are designing setbacks for our BMPs and all that kind of stuff. So I hope that's been under consideration as you're looking at it, transportation needs in the future.
Thank you. I liked the design. I liked the design with the softened, was it an awning or some type of thing that you added at the end there? I think that softened it. I think the one thing that I did like about the look was the synergy, I think, with the rec center, because it's pretty, you know, there's lots of lines there as well. So I think the softened approach, or if there was something that could be added to the aesthetic, because I think when we did tour, there was stone, and it does get expensive though. So, and not to nitpick, but like I don't see the need for glass down in the garage here. I think the metal screening was fine, and I mean that's just somebody's going to have to go down and clean that glass, or and I mean that's just realistic, because otherwise it's going to look terrible. So, and I also agree about, I think part of what softens it are the trees. And let's face it, it's going to be a long time before those trees. So anything that we can do, but we have to be also very aware of maintenance, and who's going to be out there trimming the shrubs and adding more to the general services side. So, it's things like that I just think we have to think about moving forward. But I did the softened approach towards the end was my favorite. So.
All right. Thank you all. And we will, again, have employee input meetings tomorrow, stakeholder group meeting Thursday, and then the public input meeting October 1st, Tuesday, from 4 to 7 p.m. at Legacy Hall. If anyone from the public would like to come, they'll see the same thing as you all see, and we'll compile all that input and go from there. Thank you.
Repeat the day of the public input.
It's October 1st, next Tuesday, from 4 to 7 p.m. at Legacy Hall in Newtown.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
That brings us to Thomas Weisong, policy to address solar energy generating facilities. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to the board. At the May board business meeting, the board requested staff further research the possibility of providing a specific limit on the amount of land to be developed as solar farms within the county as an additional component of the proposed draft solar policy. Specifically, the board directed staff to research policies implemented by other Virginia localities that establish limits for the total amount of solar farms permitted within their locality. Basically, multiple counties within Virginia have implemented a limit on land that can be developed as solar farms, and generally there are two approaches that are currently in place within the Commonwealth. The first is to limit the amount of solar farm developments to a fixed number or percentage of the total acreage within the locality. And the second approach is to limit the amount of solar farm development to a percentage of the total acreage of the zoning district that the solar farm is proposed within. Now, according to GIS, the county consists of approximately 114,901 acres, but once water has been excluded from this total, the total land acreage is approximately 89,048 acres. If the county were to establish a policy limiting solar facilities developments to 1% of the total county land area, which is what several other counties have done, a total of 890.48 acres would be permitted for solar facilities. Now, currently, the county has approved 356.73 acres of land disturbance for approved solar facilities, which leaves approximately 534 acres for any new proposed solar facilities within the county, should this criteria be included within the policy. If the county were to pursue the second approach, 2% of each zoning district would be permitted for solar farms. And compared to the first approach, this would allow for a greater amount of land to be permitted for solar within the county. Staff does note that this approach is a bit more complicated than the first because it would allow for district acreages and their limits to fluctuate based on the approving of rezonings that are unrelated to solar, which could pose challenges to implementing the solar policy. However, staff does find that either approach could be implemented within the county as an additional component of the draft policy, and we look forward to your discussion, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. So thank you.
Thank you. Questions?
I've got a few. In the report, it takes all the land mass and then you pull the water mass out of it to get the, I think it was almost 90,000 acres or something. And so if we take, is that including any of the streams and that sort of thing, or any of the protected areas that, and I know it might be too detailed, or maybe, it may be too hard at this point to, but what I was thinking is we'll pull the massive area of water out, but there's a lot of area that's protected that you couldn't build on anyhow. And then we get into not only that, but then we get into the slopes. We couldn't build on that. So, and then we get into the areas that are already zoned for some type of subdivision, but are not built out or haven't even started yet. So if we figure all those into the 1%, it changes the whole scenario. You would build on more area than you would if you took all that out and then said, this is what's left. And 1% of that is left would be a different number than 890.4 acres. So. Yeah, as I was reading that, that's what I was thinking. Okay, we just, we pulled out these areas just to kind of give us, a starting point and where we would be, and if we pull this out. So really, if we don't know those other items, then we're kind of would blindly be, trying to come up with a plan that would work, because then it gives us a different number than what is actually out there. And I'm sure to try to figure all this out and get all those components and, okay, this is developable. This has already been plotted out. And in this area, the stream bed is X, where we just figured the larger water. I know it's going to be a lot more in depth and a lot longer time to get that, but I think those numbers would be important to have in order to compare the 1% of what is actually left to develop. That makes sense. Thank you.
I had asked Mr. Holt earlier, and I guess you guys were hard at work on Monday and yesterday and got this little email out to us today, and I thank you very much for that, because I think it focuses in on exactly what you're looking at. I looked at this and I said, this is, first of all, it's a 1% and then a 2%. And I guess those numbers are because somebody else has done it. You know, whether that's the right percentage or not, I don't know. And it clears to me that I think the land area limit approach would be simpler and easier to administer and deal with from staff standpoint rather than trying to do it by zoning district. But getting right back to basically, what is it that we have out there that is developable as utility scale solar? And we're looking at utility scale solar. We're going to be dealing almost exclusively with A1 land outside the PSA. And so that was the question I asked, and they came back with the number, and I don't know whether this, I know that this number does not back out any of the uses of land that are like already communities that are already built or, structures that are already there. But it for A1, it's 9,462 acres. And I think you have Uncle's Neck is in there. That would have to be backed out.
Right.
But I do believe it did back out steep slopes and RPA, didn't it? You didn't include the steep slopes or the RPA or undevelopable. That's correct? Okay, I thought my conversation that's correct. So essentially, that's pretty much the developable, but it's not quite that high because there are a lot of places that are already built that you have to take out. So that's what we're dealing with. We're probably, and let's say we're dealing with 7,000 or 8,000 acres of developable land out there. And if you want to put a limit on that, you might. I'm not too concerned. We're looking at 3 districts: the public land, R8 and A1. R8 is probably where they have some of these 3-acre lot communities already, and some of it obviously A1. But the public land is probably it's either the parks where we're not going to put it, or the landfill where we would want to put it.
Right.
But we really need to focus on that A1 9,000 some odd acres. And then the question I have for it is, that's pretty much the target we'll be aiming at. So the question is, if we say, all right, we're going to let 500 acres or 1,000 acres of it potentially be developed, then I'm concerned about what the legal ramifications would be, because when we've already laid out that all these rules that it has to be within so many miles of the power line and can't be within a mile of each other, and we have all these different things that sort of constrain where these things can be placed already. If we add this one more level on of saying we're going to restrict the number of acres, it's easy to look at a citizen who has property out there and say, well, your property couldn't be used for solar because doesn't meet these other criteria. But when you have multiple people who have property that do meet the current criteria, and then you have to look at one of them and say, hey, you weren't fast enough. The other guy got to it first. The equity of treatment of landowners in the ability to use their land for what we allow under an SUP sort of breaks down a little bit. And so I've got a little bit of concern from that respect. And I don't know from a legal aspect whether our county attorney could tell us whether we would be at risk of some contentious litigation over that. Right?
Yeah. And
We'll ask about that later then.
I think it'd go back to the same thing as far as any zoning that we normally do.
Mm-hmm.
I think anything that we do up here or anywhere else, you're always open to some type of litigation possibly. And when you change something and you say, okay, we're going to change the zoning on this, we're doing the same thing when we're changing a zoning or putting another layer on it, we're affecting the landowner. And the same with this, but I think it's more of I think what we're all trying to do is more find a balance. What is the balance? So, is solar's not the win all do all, but it's part of the pieces we have in our toolbox in order to supply power. It's like all the other things, I think it's a mix of all that is gonna make the whole. But that's the biggest thing I'm worried about is on this plan, I hate to see the ones we've got in place now kind of fit, and they fit in a certain area. And I think that's really important, you know, and how they fit within the community, how much they're seen within the community. And of course, you can plant all the trees you want, and 10 or 15 years, they grow up and cover everything, and then one hurricane and they're gone. So, you know, and we can't decide because of that either. I mean, that would be silly to try to make a decision on what if this happened. It'd be the same thing. What if all of us disappeared tomorrow? You know, you get another board and you continue on down the road. But just trying to figure out how the solar component fits within the community, and also how it fits within, when you get into A1, you know, do we clear trees to put a solar farm on when John's talking, you know, that we need more trees, which I agree. And, you know, we want to plant more trees. Is that a benefit that we clear trees to put solar on, and then we need more trees? So, you know, that's kind of a balance we're going to have to work with. And I'm seeing more and more different things about solar, that the heat from the solar is causing global warming as well. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize it put off much heat, but evidently the heat from the solar, it affects smaller planes when they fly over. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, right.
That's what I'm hearing. But you know, what is our balance of, you know, being able to do some solar stuff, being able to have our citizens utilize their land for something other than building, and maybe it can go back to farming later, as long as the soils are in good condition. And has it fit within what we want in our community? I think that's our biggest question that we're all trying to struggle with.
Let me come back to answer. I tend to agree with you on a lot of things here. I would like to see us ask staff to focus on this A1 number, because I'd like to know, of that 9,462 acres, you know, how much of it really is suitable for solar type, you know. And one of the things I would tell you is, so far, I don't believe we have approved any one of these four that allowed them to cut down trees.
No.
Okay. And so that's, to me, that's a given going forward. I don't want to cut down any trees. We've got open land that they can utilize. I'm more amenable to that. But I'd like to have staff tell us where it is, because the question I asked earlier today was, I said, how many acres are there of A1 outside the PSA? And the answer was just under 40,000. And of that, 9,000 meets the criteria. And of that 9,000, it may be only 6,000 or 7,000 are available. So, you know, I'd like to know get a better feel for what that number is, of how many acres of A1 land is in that meets all that criteria out there is available. So then we could, if you want to say, all right, you want to make a decision of some sort of a limit, then you know what you're dealing with. Because right now we don't know exactly what we're dealing with.
We don't, and that was my question.
Okay,
too,
so I agree with you in that respect, but I think I would like to see maybe a little, you know, finer iteration now. And I do want to take the opportunity to thank staff, because this is not easy. When I call up and say, I'd like this, and I was absolutely amazed that they came up with these figures, and with the GIS folks in that short order, just because I got up and got grumpy over my coffee and wanted to have an answer about that. And I really do appreciate the hard work they put in. And I think we're sort of honed in on what we really need to be looking at.
So it sounds like this will not be your last time bringing this forward. If you could get that number for us, and then we'll bring it, again.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
And I would just add that at that point, maybe internally we can talk amongst ourselves, if we know what that number is, what kind of limitation do you think is reasonable to put on it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much. That brings us to board considerations, real estate tax credit discussion. I believe we have our treasurer with us that's going to give the presentation. Welcome.
I want to thank you guys for having me after Brad. It seems he clears the room, which made it a whole lot more comfortable for me.
We'll see if we can arrange that.
I appreciate it. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the board. The resolution before you this afternoon will allow me and my staff to move forward with the development of the fiscal year 2025 real estate tax invoices reflecting a 5-cent tax rate credit. During the budget discussions of FY 2025, this body acknowledged the higher real estate tax amount county property owners will be faced with this year based on the most recent reassessment results. To alleviate some of the burden without changing the current tax rate of 83 cents, the board elected to have a tax credit equal to 5 cents applied to the FY 2025 real estate tax invoices. As our tax collection software is not equipped for such a credit, we discussed possible parameters about how best to implement this request with county administration, financial and management services, the county attorney, our information resource management team, and a team from our software vendor, PCI. To meet our customary mailing deadline in late October for the first installment, the decision was made to use the smallest number of parameters needed by the software vendor to apply this credit. We considered things like properties already receiving partial exemptions, properties in the land use program, and properties assessed with supplemental billings based on construction during the year. Using the software vendor's recommendation, a credit equal to the desired 5 cents would be best applied to all balances after any post-tax credits. On the real estate invoices for FY 2025 due in December and next June, the citizens will see the original tax amount assessed, the amount of the credit, and an acknowledgement of the FY 2025 budget adopted by this board that includes that credit. At this time, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have about this process and our expected results.
Thank you. Questions?
Great job.
Don't really have any questions, but thank you for the work that you've done on this. I think it makes good sense to do it this way.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I will tell you, our treasurer and her staff, what seems to be relatively easy from my standpoint and maybe yours, they've put a lot of hours and effort. And I do want to thank her publicly for
you.
getting us to the point to where you had asked them to be. But I feel pretty good about where she is today as well.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you. All right, so I need to move that, I need a motion for that.
Motion for approval?
Thank you. Mr. Stevens?
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower? Mr. McGlennon?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
With that, that brings us to board requests and directives.
Just want to mention a couple of things. First of all, that, Mr. Stevens made mention, and I know the chair's made mention before, about the great work that our staff does. I had the opportunity after our last meeting to give a welcome to about 30 new employees who were in the process of orientation and getting tours of the county facilities. And I think there was an awful lot of enthusiasm in that room for James City County and for the opportunity to work for our organization. Many of them really recognized that already they felt as if this was not just a job, but a place in which they can really develop themselves professionally and personally. And so when we look at all the different ways in which our staff have been accomplishing wonderful things, it's just great to know that we still have a great reputation for folks coming to work for us. And I want to thank Mr. Hippel for his role and Mr. Stevens for arranging a tour of the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel project. We got to see the first of the two tunnels that are being constructed by the tunnel boring machine Mary, which is looking a little more the worse for wear after having traversed one of the tunnels and about to start the second round. But it was a fascinating experience and really will make a tremendous difference for the ability for people to get around Hampton Roads, including a lot of folks who may come over from the other side of the water to spend more time in Williamsburg. We also had an opportunity to participate in the Peninsula Food Bank's elected officials day. where we packed about 720 boxes for families in need. Just the work of the Peninsula Food Bank is very, very important, and the need seems still to be growing almost every day. And finally, along with other board members, the staff, and all, we were delighted to participate in Project Resolute in a economic development project with Kongsberg, which I'm sure the chair and Mr. Stevens will be talking about as well, but I just wanted to mention that great opportunity for us. Thank you. Oh, and just a reminder that on October 2nd, I'll be holding a community meeting in Grove at Little Zion Baptist Church on Pocahontas Trail from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m.
I had a bunch of meetings I got to go to since the last time. September 11th, I met and gave a presentation, our little citation to the Fleet Reserve Association, and that was a very, very interesting group of folks. We had, instead of just making a presentation and running, I sat through the whole meeting, and it was really informative. I've also spoken to several of our veterans organizations, VFW, both VFWs, and last night American Legion Post 39, in support of what I mentioned last time, Operation Home for the Holidays that we're working on. I did go to the September 8th, the Clean County Awards breakfast we had over there, which is very, very nice, and I'll leave the rest of it for other things. But I did want to mention that at the Chamber of Commerce meeting that I went to on the September the 23rd, we had a presentation by the Williamsburg Youth Orchestra, and there's a program that they put on for teaching young kids to play violin, and they actually had, I think it's the library helps them, 3D print violins, and we had a lady play one at the Chamber of Commerce meeting, and it was phenomenal. So the ability to produce these instruments at very, very low cost for this program for the Williamsburg Youth Orchestra was very, very impressive, and I just felt I had to mention that. And then the last two items I will say about tonight's meeting. Number one, it's phenomenal. The uniqueness of this community is reflected in the fact that we have public servants who've been here for 40 plus years, and to have those folks stand up here and be recognized, I think, was very, very important. And I did want to make sure that John Carnifax got one more thank you from dog owners who go to the dog park, because Charlie and Cody love it, and we're regulars over there, and there are a lot of citizens that use that dog park now. So the last thing is the grant awards. $1.2 million worth of grant awards we accepted in the consent agenda. That's phenomenal. Good work.
And really good items.
Yes.
As well.
Very impressive.
Yes.
Jim, excuse me, Madam Chair, do you want to let the citizens know while we've got them on a Home for the Holidays, how they can get in touch with that?
Yes, we do have a Home for the Holidays. If they go to the Greater Williamsburg Chamber of Commerce, their website on the Greater Williamsburg Chamber of Commerce, there's a link on there for Home for the Holidays. And it's you can donate if you want to right online. And I tell folks, if you want to call, you can call Ms. Ann Bowe at the chamber, and she will talk to anyone about who would like to support or donate to that cause. We are hopeful that we'll get a really good turnout and of applications from the two bases, and we're in the process of making a concerted effort to raise the funds to meet that demand.
Thank you.
I'm going to use a minute of my time. Heather Harmon is here in the audience today because at the conclusion of this meeting, she is going to smash a pie in my face and in Brad Reinheimer's. And the reason is because we raised $500 with a team that she started. And so I just want you to tell for a moment what the cause was. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. And then tell the date of the walk, if you would.
Me on the spot all you want.
Okay.
I'm delivering your pie.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So the walk is October 26th. It is throughout Newtown. It is for Alzheimer's. We have done it for years. I got involved last year. So this year I said we need to have a little fun. So we got a few people in our community that agreed to graciously take a pie in their face if they raised $500 or $1,000. And to date, last week we hit the $15,000 mark. So we're number one in Williamsburg and number two in Southeastern Virginia. So it's incredible how amazing our community is. So I thank you, Ruth.
Thank you, and thank you for coming forward. I appreciate it, and I don't know that I appreciate a pie in the face, but thank
Oh,
you
I
for
do.
thank you for your willingness to come up and talk about it. Scott will talk about our economic development announcement. That was a very exciting day, and I'm so appreciative of all the work economic development did, Hampton Roads Alliance, and the Commonwealth of Virginia. It's a really great thing for James City County. On that same day, later in the evening, I got to participate in Howard Hanna, did a ribbon cutting for their renovated offices. And so I was glad to be a part of that. Scott was there, the mayor was there, that was good. I spoke to Karma last week at their lunch group at Giuseppe's Restaurant. That was great as well. And we've had so much, we've had a lot of great stuff going on. And I want to thank our community. And I think, Scott talked about the dedication that we put in our Parks and Rec. And we are so lucky to be served by a great group of employees there. Also want to thank our citizens that have supported those initiatives. And when you talk about things about our budget, it's a direct result of our budget. And so I am very appreciative of all that we do in order to support those efforts. On a couple of notes, Jason has been working with me we get a lot of VDOT inquiries, and Jason, I appreciate all that you've done for that. We do what we can to get back to the citizens who have questions about speeding and drainage ditch and just road paving and stop signs, and that's just a little bit of what we deal with VDOT. Today, we walked the trail, the Green Springs Trail. We had a citizen that was concerned about some tree damage there. So there were 5 of us that we looked very different from most of the people that were walking the trail because we were dressed in we weren't dressed in our athletic wear. But in other words, I'm just trying to get that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that people don't always see. And I appreciate the extra effort that everyone that works here makes. And then one item I do want to bring up, we work very closely with Dominion. They're starting to do a strategic undergrounding here. And from what I have understood from our liaison, they are willing to come out and meet with the people. If you hear from people in your community who they're reaching out to, they're going door to door to get permission about the easement and that type of thing. But Crystal Bright will help navigate any of that. However, one area that I'm not happy with Dominion on is that they do a program where they go and spray to get the trees that may cause havoc, or the greenery that is underneath of a power line. And I understand that, but they just leave it to die, and it's brown and it's dead. And, in my particular area, for instance, which is a scenic byway, and it is an area that greets people as they come, and not only do they live here, but as they come here to visit. And so I hope that we are able to work through a better solution for that as we move forward. Perhaps we could have it die and then clear it out, because what we were told is in 2 or 3 years it'll fall over. But I'm not really happy with 2 to 3 years of looking at dead material. So anyway, Jason, that's another area that Jason's been working on. But anyway, with that, I'll turn it over to you, Scott, because I could just keep going, but I'll just.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. 2 things I would share. One is the announcement of Kongsberg to build bring their next naval strike missile and joint strike missile manufacturing assembly facility to James City County. A $70 million investment, 180 jobs, $80,000 average wage, really a great win for our community. I do want to congratulate our economic development staff, Chris Johnson and Beth Cook, in terms of working through that. A very fast-moving project. They represented our community well. I appreciate all of your attendance when we announced with the state last week their intention to build here. And I do think it supports not only good investment, good taxes, all those things for our community, along with some other subsidiaries to support facilities we expect may follow. It really represents James City County's support of our military. And I really think for all of us, when I talk to people in this community, they are very supportive of our U.S. military. This company is a direct aid in supporting that mission as they go downrange and protect and defend our country. And so I'm real excited to be part of that and have them coming to our community. Look for more to come, but really a very high-tech manufacturing facility. One thing in talking with a few residents who were concerned, and certainly for our first responders that might have a reason to go to the facility, they assemble the missile, and it's a very high-tech missile. They do not arm it in James City County. That will go to a military installation, most likely the Naval Weapons Station, and be armed there. So when folks worry about what is in this facility, it will be the manufacturing of it, pretty high-tech assembly, but the actual arming of it will be done on a military installation. So I think for us, that takes us out of that response and removes some of that risk to our community. So I think a very good announcement, and in a couple of years, they should be up and running. Still working on their site, so we've asked a few times, where is it? Proximity to Naval Weapons Station is important to them. As we get that site with them, or they get it finalized, we're happy to share that as well. The second thing I would mention, early voting has begun September 20th, and so our vote center is up and running, and our Director of Elections, Diane Mormon, and her volunteers and other staff are ready for you. They are open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. They've had a really good turnout, maybe 1,500 plus the first couple days, so a pretty steady group coming through, and would just remind our residents, it's at 4095 Ironbound Road. It has moved from years past. It is where it's been the last 3 years, but it is behind the courthouse. And again, we have the site and the building, I think, very well established and set up for our residents to come and participate in early voting if that's what they would like to do ahead of Election Day. So that's all I had.
So I remarked to Supervisor McGlinnan earlier that on first day of early voting, there was all this brouhaha about the county of Fairfax having 2,000 voters, and you had sent the number that we had, and I said, on a scale, we're
We blew 'em
doing
away.
much. Yeah,
Yes,
we
ma'am.
sure did. And so, that's great that people are getting out and voting.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
yeah, you can't have a voice unless you vote. So, with that, I need a motion to enter into closed session for the following items: consideration of a personnel matter, the appointment of individuals to county boards and or commissions pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia. Just one second, sorry. Peninsula Agency on Aging appointment, Social Services Advisory Board appointment, discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, and discussion of the terms or scope of such contracts where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body pursuant to Section 2.2-3711A29 of the Code of Virginia and pertaining to the contract for the joint operation of schools between the county and the city of Williamsburg. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval?
Mr. Stevens?
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower? Aye. Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We're in closed session. We'll try to be fast, Ms. We are back in open session. I need a certification of the closed session.
Madam Chair, I move to certify that we only spoke about those items we indicated we'd speak about going into closed session.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens?
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower? Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Eisenhower, do you have a motion?
Yes, ma'am. I will move that we appoint Barbara Watson to a term on the Peninsula Agency on Aging that expires September 30th, 2027, and that we appoint to the Social Services Advisory Board Derek Jackson and Melinda Marriott to terms that expire the September 24th, 2028.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens?
Mr. Hippel? Aye. Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower?
Aye.
Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
May I have a motion to adjourn until 5 p.m. on October 8th, 2024 for our regular meeting?
So moved.
Mr. Stevens?
Mr. Hippel?
Aye.
Mr. McGlinnan?
Aye.
Mr. Eisenhower? Ms. Larson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
We're adjourned.